Somewhere thousands of years ago, a human walks away from camp. No road, no signboard, no map, no compass, no phone, no blue dot glowing on a screen. Just dry grass, rocks, trees, wind, animal tracks, sunlight, distant hills, and a world that could kill them if they walked the wrong way for too long. And somehow, they know where they are. They know where the water is. They know where the camp was yesterday. They know which valley has fruit in one season and which dry riverbed hides tubers in another. They know which direction leads toward relatives, which direction leads toward danger, which direction leads home. Now compare that with us. A modern person misses one turn, loses signal, watches their phone battery die, and suddenly the world becomes confusing. The street is there, the buildings are there, the sky is there, but without the little arrow on the screen, the brain starts to panic. That is strange, because for most of human history, getting lost was not an inconvenience. It was a survival problem, and ancient humans could not outsource the problem to a device. They had to carry the map inside their own heads. This video is not about roads. It is not about travel. It is about one of the most forgotten human abilities, the ability to belong to a landscape. Because before humans had GPS, before paper maps, before street names, before borders, before cities, the human brain was already mapping the world. And maybe one reason modern life feels so strange is that our bodies still live on Earth, but our minds no longer know where they are. For ancient humans, the land was not empty. A modern person may look at a plain, a forest, a desert, or a coastline and see nature. But to an ancient human, the same place was full of information. A bent tree was information. A broken branch was information. The smell of water was information. The shape of clouds was information. The direction of birds was information. A track in the dust was information. The sound of insects changing was information. The way shadows moved across a rock was information. The world was not background. The world was speaking, and the people who survived were the ones who knew how to listen. Imagine a child growing up in a small hunter-gatherer band. No one gives the child a geography textbook. No one says, "Today we begin navigation training," but the training begins anyway. The child follows adults through the land. They hear names for places, not official names written on signs, living names. The hill where someone found honey, the tree where the bees return, the bend in the river where fish gather, the dangerous place where someone was bitten, the open ground where animals cross, the rock shelter where people slept during rain, the path to relatives, the old camp, the new camp, the place you do not go alone. Little by little, the child's brain begins to stitch the world together. A path becomes connected to a memory. A memory becomes connected to a story. A story becomes connected to a direction. And after years of walking, listening, watching, and returning, the child does not just know a route. The child knows a world. That difference matters. A route is simple. Turn left, go straight. Turn right, arrive. But a world is different. A world means you understand how places relate to each other. If the river is dry, you know another way. If the path is blocked, you know where the ridge leads. If the season changes, you know which foods move with it. If smoke appears on the horizon, you know who might be there. If clouds gather from one side, you know what kind of weather may follow. Ancient navigation was not just, how do I get there? It was, what is happening here? What happened here before? Who has been here? What will happen if I keep walking? That is why the ancient map was never just a map of space. It was a map of survival. When modern people think about navigation, we usually imagine direction. North, south, left, right, distance. But ancient humans had to think in relationships. Where is water compared to camp? Where are animals compared to water? Where is fruit compared to season? Where are relatives compared to danger? Where am I compared to the group? Where is the group compared to home? The brain was not just calculating distance. It was connecting meaning. And deep inside the brain, one structure became extremely important for this: the hippocampus. The hippocampus helps humans build memories of places,
not just isolated landmarks, but the relationship between them. It is part of how the brain creates a cognitive map, an inner model of the world. This is why navigation and memory are so deeply connected. When you remember a place, you often remember what happened there. When you remember what happened, you often remember where you were. A childhood home is not just a building. It is a map of smells, corners, rooms, voices, light, fear, safety, boredom, and time. A place stores life.
For ancient humans, that connection was not poetic, it was practical. If you remembered where food was found, you ate. If you remembered where danger happened, you avoided it. If you remembered where people camped last season, you could find them again. If you remembered a path through difficult land, you survived the return. The map was memory, and memory was food. This is one reason walking mattered so much. To build a mental map, the body has to move. The feet feel distance. The eyes measure landmarks. The ears catch changes. The skin feels wind and sun. The body learns slope, effort, fatigue, heat, shade, and return. A path walked once is information. A path walked 50 times becomes part of the body. That is very different from being transported. Modern life moves the body without always letting it understand the movement. Cars move us. Trains move us. Elevators move us. Airplanes move us. GPS directs us. The body arrives, but the mind may not know the journey. You can cross a city and remember almost nothing except the screen. Turn left, turn right, recalculating, arrived. But the ancient human did not arrive that way. They accumulated the world as they moved through it. Every walk made the inner map deeper. Every mistake made it sharper. Every return made it more trustworthy. And this was not only individual. Maps lived in groups. One person knew a water place. Another knew a honey tree. Another knew where animals crossed after rain. An elder remembered a drought. A grandmother knew where roots hid when the obvious foods disappeared. A hunter knew the tracks. A child knew where they last saw berries. The group carried many maps, and the maps overlapped. That made the group more intelligent than any one person. No one had to know everything, but someone had to remember something. This is one of the hidden powers of human society. Knowledge does not only live in brains, it lives between brains, in stories, in warnings, in jokes, in names, in songs. In the sentence, "Do not go there after dark." In the sentence, "Your grandfather found water there once." In the sentence, "Follow the ridge until the mountain looks like a sleeping animal." A modern map is printed. An ancient map was spoken. And because it was spoken, it could carry meaning that a flat map cannot. A paper map can show a river, but a story can tell you that someone died crossing it after rain. A GPS can show a shortcut, but an elder can tell you why that shortcut is not worth taking. A satellite can show land from above, but a human story can tell you what the land has done to people. This is why some cultures developed ways of storing landscape knowledge in song, rhythm, and story. In some indigenous Australian traditions, song lines can encode roots, places, memory, and meaning across land and sky. They are not just songs in the modern entertainment sense. They can be maps, but maps that move through the voice. Maps that remember. Maps that connect place to story, story to responsibility, and responsibility to identity. We have to be careful here. Modern indigenous peoples are not ancient humans frozen in time. They are living peoples with their own histories, changes, and modern realities. But their traditions can remind us of something important. Humans are capable of mapping the world in ways far richer than a blue line on a phone. For ancient humans,
A place was rarely just a place. It was food, danger, memory, family, loss, return. A place was a container for human life. And that may be one of the things modern navigation has quietly taken from us. Because GPS does not ask you to know the world. It asks you to obey instructions. That is useful. Sometimes it is life-saving. No serious person should want to erase maps, GPS, rescue systems, or the ability to find a hospital in a city you have never seen. Modern navigation is powerful, but it changes the relationship. When a device tells you every turn, the world becomes less like a place you understand and more like a set of commands you follow. The road no longer has to become memory. The turn no longer has to become yours. The building no longer has to be recognized. The sun no longer matters. The slope no longer matters. The direction no longer matters. Only the instruction matters. And when the instruction disappears, the anxiety begins. Because the body is there, but the map is somewhere else. In the phone, in the battery, in the signal, in the satellite, in the app, in the machine. This is a new condition in human history. For millions of years, if humans moved through the world had to enter them. Now, we can move through the world while barely noticing it. That sounds convenient, but convenience always has a hidden price. When you stop building inner maps, places become thinner. A neighborhood becomes a set of destinations. A city becomes traffic. A road becomes stress. A journey becomes dead time. And the human sense of place begins to weaken.
That may be why modern people can live somewhere for years and still not feel rooted. They know the address. They know the Wi-Fi password. They know the delivery zone. They know the parking spot. But they may not know where the morning light falls, where people gather, which tree changes first in the season, which street smells different after rain, which direction the wind comes from, which route makes the body feel calm, which route makes it feel watched, which place feels like return. Ancient humans could not afford that kind of disconnection. To them, place was not decoration. Place was part of survival. But it was also part of identity. You were not just a person, you were a person from somewhere. A hill, a river, a camp, a coast, a forest edge, a dry valley, a seasonal route, a memory shared by others. To know where you were was also to know who you were with. And to know who you were with was to know whether you were safe. This is why getting lost is one of the oldest fears. Not just because you might not find water, not just because you might meet danger, but because getting lost separates you from the human web. No voices, no fire, no food sharing, no one watching your back, no one knowing where your body is. Lostness is not only spatial, it is social. And modern life has created a strange version of this. Millions of people are surrounded by streets, buildings, maps, signals, and addresses, but still feel lost. Not because they cannot find the store, but because the world around them does not feel like it knows them. The ancient brain wants orientation. Where am I? Where is home? Where are my people? What does this place mean? What happened here? Where do I go if I need help? What path returns me to safety? Modern life answers only part of that. It can tell you where the nearest coffee shop is. It can tell you the fastest route. It can tell you traffic conditions. It can tell you arrival time. But it cannot tell you whether you belong. And maybe that is the deeper map humans lost. Not the map of roads, the map of meaning. A map where places mattered because life happened there. A map where children learned the land by walking beside adults. A map where elders mattered because they remembered where survival was hidden. A map where story and direction were not separate. A map where the world was not something you passed through while looking at a screen. It was something you entered, something that entered you back. This does not mean we should throw away GPS. It does not mean ancient humans were magical navigators who never made mistakes. People got lost. People died. People misread signs. People followed the wrong trail. People walked into danger. The past was not perfect. But ancient humans trained a part of the mind that modern life often leaves unused. They had to notice. They had to remember. They had to connect place with story. They had to know the land well enough that the land became part of them. And when you think about it, that is a very different kind of intelligence. Not the intelligence of solving equations, not the intelligence of scrolling information, not the intelligence of storing facts for an exam, but the intelligence of orientation, of knowing where you are in a living world. That may be why walking without a phone feels strange now. At first, the mind reaches for instruction. Where do I turn? How far? How long? Am I going the right way? But if you keep walking, something older begins to wake up. You notice the corner, the tree, the smell of bread, the broken wall, the dog that barks from the same balcony, the way the light hits a street at evening, the slope you never noticed in a car, the shortcut that feels unsafe, the longer route that feels better. Slowly, the place stops being a line on a screen. It becomes a memory. That is the beginning of a map, not a digital map, a human one. And maybe ancient humans were not better than us, but they were forced to practice something we are now free to forget. They practiced being somewhere, fully, with the body, with memory, with fear, with attention, with other people. That is why this matters. Because the modern world has not only changed how we travel, it has changed how we relate to place. We can go farther than any ancient human, but we may know less about where we are. We can cross oceans in hours, but forget the direction of sunrise outside our own home. We can see the entire planet from a satellite, but feel no connection to the street beneath our feet. We have maps of everything, and still, many people feel lost. Because the next time your phone tells you where to go, remember this. Your ancestors had no blue dot. They had the sun, the ground, the wind, the memory of footsteps, the voices of elders, the stories of danger, the smell of rain, the stars, the path back to fire. And inside their skull, a living map was being drawn every time they moved through the world. Not because they were primitive, because they were paying attention. And maybe that is what we lost. Not direction, attention, not maps, memory, not roads, place. The ancient human did not simply know how to get home. The ancient human knew what home was. And that may be the difference between finding your way and never feeling lost.